who was Saint Maximus the Confessor?
Saint Maximus is a 7th century monk. Writing, he's spends a lot of time in somewhere in the eastern Byzantium, writing in Greek. He also seems to. I'm actually in the middle of translating his letters right now. There's like 49 letters, only like 2 of which have been translated to English ever, and so I'm translating those, and you can trace just by his correspondence. He has quite the network in Palestine and across parts of North Africa, where he did spend a few decades at different points. And so Saint Maximus was a monk. We know that he didn't hold any official position or office in the church, which is kind of remarkable because he was so sought after, and his opinions were so well respected, and his influence so weighty that even as an 80-year-old man in the year 660, because of certain Christological views he held about Christ's 2 wills, not only some bishops, but ultimately the emperor has him tortured for, not really for what he thinks exactly, just that he's too loud about it and sowing dissension, you know,
Yeah.
and so he's called a confessor for that reason. His right hand was cut off, his tongue was torn out. As an 80-year-old man, he dies from those wounds, a few years later. Though 19 years after his death, the church at an ecumenical council vindicates his position as the teaching of the church. So anyway, so he's it's that to me, I always say that, I always bring this up, that it's so remarkable to me, not only the fact that most of his writings are occasional,
Mm,
like people write to him and say, hey, there's this obscure passage in St. Gregory of Nazianzus Orations. What does
yeah.
he mean here? And then can you please explain this to me? Obscurities in the church fathers, obscurities in scripture. Another major work of his is basically just him answering a list of all these questions about scripture. And so it's really remarkable that he's so sought after. Everyone wants to know what Maximus, this monk, thinks.
Yeah.
And then yeah, the fact that the end of his life is still attributable to his weight, even though he wields no official power really in any way.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so yeah, so that's so Saint Maximus then, he is, especially in the Eastern Orthodox and Greek Orthodox tradition, he's considered a pillar, and one of the great towering heights of that part of the tradition, the greater tradition. But even in the West, he's always been revered. He was known in the Latin Middle Ages as the commentator on Saint Dionysius the Areopagite, the scholiast, on his works, even though that's since been, there's dispute about which ones he actually authored. But yeah, and so he was always important. But I really do think it's probably in the last century that Saint Maximus in the western part of the church has kind of made a massive comeback. I mean, not only from major thinkers like Hans von Balthasar, Swiss Catholic theologian, who really revered Maximus, wrote a great work on him,
Mm,
um, and many others as well in the 20th century, in many different actually branches and confessions of the faith. But also, I mean, just bear in mind that there wasn't a major work of Maximus's translated into English.
mm.
It had been there in French for a little bit, but there hadn't been a major work translated to English until 2014.
Oh, wow.
So this is what I mean by, we're still very much kind of in an ongoing, renaissance or rediscovery, or however you want to put it, of Maximus's work. So that's Maximus kind of in a nutshell, and a little bit about his legacy.